The other side had yellow paint and to symbolize sunrise. And so what I would do is I would roll it and soak one side, throw it on my shoulder, walk the 30 feet, and then come in, just bam, slam it down onto the canvas, so where it would push the same thing as before when with the Art of Violence, where I'm pushing the paint into the canvas. It's the same reaction. So the painting that you're seeing me create on the top is not the painting. The painting is actually on the bottom. And so, like, no one's ever really seen what the painting looks like. I had a video recording done by Josh Rask, and also for the photographer for the two projects that I have on the website. We're both Sarah Pesdek as well. And so they recorded the piece, but the piece that was created as the relic of it, no one has ever seen yet. I have that. It's somewhere, I think, somewhere close back there. But again, it's 30 feet long, 12 feet tall, and needs a very special, it needs a lot of room to be able to show it. There is, I apologize, I'm saying a lot right now, I need water. But for that project, for 2.5 hours, I traversed back and forth, and back and forth, and back and forth, and back and forth, lifting this thing, slamming it down, to where it created two suns on each side with the trail, the footprints, which would, mimic the flight path of him taking the sun up, taking the sun down. And so that entire project is about pushing my physical being to the absolute most limit. Every single solitary one of those, I create until I cannot create anymore. I create until I run out of my material I'm creating with.
I love that you use every bit of material.
Yeah, every bit of material, every ounce of strength, every drop of sweat. Like, I don't purposely do it, but I generally end up bleeding on most of those projects. And it's skin is fragile when it comes to repetitive motions. But like calluses, blisters, things like that, like they're all like very common side effects of these actions. And not to circle back to the Art of Violence, but that was a project that I recently did at the Perform Festival in Médoc, France, and it was hosted by Sarah Truche, who is honestly one of my favorite artists of all time, and she had asked me to be a part of this festival to perform the Art of Violence. I currently don't have the photos loaded up to my website, which I will amend that immediately as soon as we wrap this up. But I ended up performing that in front of a crowd of about 50 people after about 100 people after a huge Moroccan dinner in an ex-French country vineyard provincial castle. And I'm out in the middle of the French countryside, like breathing the air, and I don't drink wine, but let me tell you, when I was in France, I drank wine. Like, it's to be in the place that, like, I was drinking wine that 5 miles down the road it was created. Like the same water is in that I'm drinking out of the tap is like in this wine, so it's hard not to. Anyway. So there was a 30-foot or 200-foot long agricultural combine sprinkler. When you're flying, when you're flying anywhere in the United States and you look out the window and you see those circles on the ground, what those are agricultural sprinkler combines. And from the center of them, it's like, a big sprinkler. This one was completely defunct, so I hung my punching bag off of that and was able to do 2 shows in 2 days, which was an astronomical physical feat, and I don't mind saying so myself. But rather than do the 3-minute rounds for 12 rounds, I wanted to be more impactful, so I literally I hit the bag until I couldn't breathe, and I dropped, and I was like, that's what I have. So the entire performance at the festival in Medoc took about 10 minutes, I think, at most. I thought it was 2 minutes. I thought I failed everyone. And they get up and they're like, how did you do that? I was like, that was 2 minutes. They're like, that was 10 minutes. How are you alive? And then I had, the showering and everything else. Like it's all part of the ritual of it. And then after that, I saw and experienced one of the most like important, beautiful dance pieces I've ever seen in my life after that. So it's like I'm all hopped up on like adrenaline, and then I see this like emotional thing, and it was an experience for the ages, if you will. So that's sort of part of the performance things that I've been working on for, geez, it has to be close to 10 years now.
And I guess it's a natural progression from you having played in bands to then going into the art and being a performing artist and used to being on stage, and the thing people are viewing, creating, in the
Absolutely. And with playing music and like being in bands and things of that nature, like it was so cathartic because, and just like when you do performances with art, like for me, everything disappears. There's nothing else in the world that exists except what's happening at that moment. I'm not concerned about what I look like, or stock markets or asteroids or anything else in the world. Doesn't matter except that. And when I'm playing bass and you're when you're playing bass and you're in it with like your 3 or 4 best friends, and like you're creating this like chaotic like symphony, and there's really nothing in the world like it, I gotta say. But yeah, the performance part of my work, that was a natural progression from that. So I never felt uncomfortable. I mean, I'm nervous, yes, but never uncomfortable performing in front of people as far as that goes. And so when you have that alleviation of I guess stage fright would be like one of the most common like referred to terms. When you've already had 10 years to work past that, it really makes it easy to be able to transition right into to performance art.
And another thing, which we haven't touched on this yet, but about street art and street art influence and murals. And can you tell us a bit about that?
Oh yeah. I can absolutely tell you about that. I'm not sure if I sent you any of the murals that I have on that little slides show.
Let me see.
There might have been one of the ones from the street. That one right there. All right, I'm very happy it was this one that got through. So this right here is part of the Ghost City project. I've been working on the Ghost City project since hold on. I got to make sure I'm saying like it's the right. Yeah, since 2009. I've been working on the Ghost City project, and in Albany, New York, Governor Rockefeller decided to build this massive, humongous Orwellian complex, and right in the center of downtown Albany. And what you're seeing right here is a composite of about 4 different city blocks that used to exist where this complex is. So they completely bulldozed 98 acres of downtown Albany to create this complex. And so I've spent, a decade or better, obviously better than a decade, collecting as many images of Albany in that area and in the pre-Plaza time period, like pre-1970s, to be able to create these visions, to create these cityscapes, to like give life and purpose to what they once were. For me, the project isn't about mourning. It's about celebration of its existence. Where if you're from Albany, a lot of Dutch architecture. There's a lot of things that are keynotes to this city, and actually, like, you know, New England in general. But there are things that exist here that just didn't exist anywhere else. And so it created, it allowed me to be able to create this like fluid framework to be able to create these cityscapes, and the way that I paint them, because not every photo is the same. You know, some are grainy, some are crisp, some are like, you know, beautiful, some are like foggy. So you have to take every one of these photos and be able to make them look cohesive, make them look like they all belonged in a single, you know, in a single place. And when I paint them, you know, when you get up close, they're so aggravated you can't tell what it is. It's just brush strokes, white, black, this, that. They go everything else. But as you back up, the whole picture comes together. And just like when you have a memory of something, you know, say when you were 12 or 14, you went to New York City. You don't remember like every detail, every smell, every bum you passed, every, you know, like, you know, every little tchotchke store, every guy selling you, you know, shirts. But what you do is you patch together the most important parts. And so what I'm doing with the Go City project is I'm patching together the most important parts of these cityscapes to create like this memory of what once was. And in the stylistic way that I do paint it, it is to give your mind enough information to put it together yourself. So no two people are really going to see it like the same way. I really believe that.
Thank you so much. That's a really beautiful mural project that you're doing about the history of Albany. And it's really interesting about, you know, what we think of with gentrification and tearing down neighborhoods to build buildings, and of course all of those
elements come
up.
This was one of the, oh, sorry, I apologize.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, this was one of the first things that happened. You know, this happened pre them, or just after like they tore Penn Station down in New York. You know, so like people were aware of how important the historic value of these buildings and places were, but still weren't far enough ahead to be able to protect them. And yeah, and with this project, recently I was awarded a bid, and I have completed it it's about 200 feet long, and it is in the Empire State Plaza, the very place that these buildings existed. I was hired by the state of New York to be able to create a mural of the Ghost City project in the Empire State Plaza. Now, this is like really honestly the first time that I've talked to anyone about it, because I just about, I think it had to be 2 weeks ago, was able to bring it to the public, because they just got it on the New York State Gov website. It's been done for about 4 months, and you know, with the whole pandemic, it's been closed for about 2. So I was able to announce to the world they could see my beautiful mural when it opens again. But really, it was. I will admit it was a trial for me to be able to have to do this project, because I am art brained. I am not math brained. I am not, you know, there's like certain things that artists are capable of doing, and paperwork and politics are not those things when it comes to, like, you know, to creation. I'm like, hey, that's the wall you want me to paint? I'm gonna go paint that wall. That's what I want to do. They're like, oh, but here's these 8 meetings we have to go to, and here's these 45 signs, and here's a 147-page contract with 60 ways we can fire you. But the whole thing is like, as daunting as like, and as weighty as that was, it was like, I realized that like, this is what I have to do to be able to bring, like, it's not the coup de grace of the Ghost City project, although there couldn't be a more important and pertinent place for it to exist. You know, like, I intend on creating miles more of this. I intend on doing these things in every city using their old cities. But for this specific project, it meant the world to me that, A, I was chosen out of 40 different artists that applied. But the entire culmination from when I bid to when I ended up like finally being paid and they got it onto the website was probably about, I think it was like 2 years and a month. And again, like, you know, like for about 1.5 years, I had a lot of projects that I had to put off because if I contractually messed up, got arrested, you know, like for some things that artists do sometimes, um, that you know, I could stand the chance of losing like this entire what is practically a fortune to an artist. And so I had to like reel it in for a while and like concentrate on like smaller things, so on and so forth. I started doing silversmithing and jewelry again. So it definitely like it literally like the paperwork or the structure of it had kind of like affected the ebb and flow of it. This whole thing started as a street art project. It started because I love projectors. I think they're fantastic, you know, things. I've always loved screen printing, but I hate the process of screen printing. So when I found that I could just use a projector to be able to create the same things, that was it for me. I was like, oh, that's how we do this. Let's do this. And but yeah, and be able to, but so like the static collage aspect of it makes me be able to go and do 300-400 feet long if I need. But yeah, again, like reeling it in because of the structural like nature of that project was wild. You know, I had a very strong ally in the state for that project, and one that looked out for me immeasurably. You know, helped me out with the contracts, helped me out with the wording, and like if I didn't ask something in the meeting, they would ask that thing for me. And so it is important to definitely like know what you're doing and know what you're talking about, because you know, they can sneak up on you quick with the contractual obligations and talk, let me tell you.
Samson, there's this fantastic image that we had a picture of you in front of this piece, right? Yes. For our promo. And
that's a second piece, actually.
Well, I don't know. Would you tell us about this? What is this?
Okay, so what these are, this is the culmination of probably about 20 years of color theory work. What you're looking at right now is a 12-foot tall, 24-foot wide painting that was out of my Color Works series. And the Color Works series was brought about because I initially was doing very, like, when I started painting for a living, I was painting pink gorillas and very pop art iconic, you know, Rockefellers and things like that. But what this project did was get into the elemental and physical part of the creation of color for me. So every color you see in here, I created. It didn't exist before me. It won't exist after this painting. What I do is I create potions, and they're mixtures of different bases of paints, mostly acrylic, but sometimes, you know, oil depending on the surface, dyes, actual like powdered pigments, and then, you know, other variables sometimes go into them as well. But to be able to create these pieces, it took a long time to be able to come up with different like consistencies and formulas to be able to do these works. And everything you see, all the brush strokes you see, everything you see, I create my brushes, I create my things, I create my sprayers, everything. In order for it to be authentic to me, I feel like nothing can be replicated to be able to recreate these things. You know, I feel like that's where a lot of the intrinsic value lies in these works. Another thing is also there's like math. I know I said I'm not math brained like 10 minutes ago, but there is a mathematical like equation to it, where when you're viewing that painting, and like here's another series of works. I think I created these ones in California, But here's better. But when you see this, the size and the breadth of the strokes, they will measure to be the same size as they go up. You know, so you're going to see whether it's this close or 12 feet tall by this thing. There's a translation mathematically of how I build my brushes for the pieces I'm creating. So yeah, again, like these are just really fun, happy, colorful. When most of these ones I created either on Venice Beach or on I had access to a rooftop deck studio. So I was limited to sun and moon, but when it rained, that kind of sucked. Get things fast. And thank you, Kim and Keith. I love you for that. But yeah, I'm trying to think of it. I have other ones in here like that I created, like these ones. These ones right here were residually created on the. Does everyone remember when the eclipse happened? It was probably about like 4 years ago, 5 years ago. So 4 or 5 years ago, I think these are the only two examples I have left. But 4 or 5 years ago, while the eclipse was going on, I laid out 37 canvases and then 3 giant swaths of canvas, and I created these paintings while the actual the eclipse was happening in Albany, New York. We only got 74% of it, so these are 74% eclipse paintings. But I ended up, there's this one. Sadly, had suffered damage, throughout the time in ether. But these ones were actually a residual result of creating the large swaths of canvas. These were my paintbrushes. And so that's why all of the paint ended up on the edges. I have very, 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 very few of these. Most of the time I reuse them as brushes for other paintings, so they get thicker and deeper and so on and so forth. But because these were created at that very specific moment, they're kind of like the only relics that I have left of that whole series of 37. And so the color works, the color works, they're actually part of a few different series of works that I have. And so like there's the plain color works, then I have one by the name of Color Squared. And I've literally been doing these things 12 by 12 inch canvases of these color theories. I have probably about like 500 or 600 of them already. They're way back there. I might be able to like climb through and get it through in a minute, but I'll pull out one of them just so you can see like the different variations of how I ended up coming to these measurements and algorithms of creating the brushes. And it helps me, again, like it takes one of those tiny little paintings to be able to create an entirely new series of work. And so like the different variations out of that series of work, I don't like pigeonholing myself and being like, here's my color things and here's my black and white things. Like nothing is actually black and white to me in that sense.
So I have so much, you've done so many different things that there's like a part of me wants to talk about all of it, but I know we don't really have time for that today. But you also sent me this image, and this, well, actually there are two I'd love you to tell me a bit more about. Please. This one?
Okay, so if you want to keep that up for a second, what I'm going to say is a mouthful. What that is, I'm going to need about 2 minutes to tell you how this thing came into existence. So in 2009, my brother Max, me, and his dog Xena were driving around the country in what he referred to at the time as the Vantion. When we were in Los Angeles, California, I regularly talked with my friend Tamara Gabbard. She was stationed at Bagram Air Force Base in Afghanistan. And I was sitting on my brother's stoop, and we called each other every 2 weeks just to like make sure everything's okay, so on and so forth, war and all. We ended up, after a simple conversation on that bench, on that parapet or whatever, we ended up doing an art show in Afghanistan at Bagram Air Base with 25 artists donating work in about a 3-week time period that she had permission to do this show. They cleared out one of the helicopter hangars. They put up all these like plywood sheets. They hung the art that all the people donated from, Minnesota, from Los Angeles, from New York, and once they had the show, when they had that show, Tamara Gabbard was picking up a few people from the 69th Regiment in New York City. One of the people said, "Oh, you do art? The staff sergeant over at 69th Regiment would love to do something with you." She called him immediately, ended up setting up a date for us to come in and do a benefit for, I can't remember the name of the charity now, but it was a benefit for the troops. For all of the art that didn't get sold or didn't get given away in Afghanistan was all going to come back and be shown at the show. Well, when we went down to see what the space was, it was a practical dirigible hangar. It is a 28,000 square foot military drill floor at 25th and Lexington in New York City. And so when we went down and saw the space, this was about 2 months later, by the way. I apologize for the timeline there.
Is that the other photo? I can switch.
And so this installation right here was for the show that we did in 2009. And if you switch to the other photo.
Just take me a minute.
No problem at all.
This one, right?
This was the show that we did in 2010. And so the first photo, what that was, we had to come up with a way to be able to hang artists' work, and there was no walls. We couldn't touch any walls. We had to create everything ourselves. So what you were seeing in that first picture was 147 panel, 7-foot tall canvases that I painted the entire interior of, and it mimicked the walls, like the layout of the 1913 Armory show that took place in the same building, obviously in 1913. But that was the show that introduced America to modern art. And so as an homage to that show, I created a 1/3 size scale replica of the walls and just painted them as my canvases. And then what we did was sheet the outside in plywood, wrapped it in billboard material, and then hung all the art. And we had 2 days to set it up and a day and a half to break it down, and 2 days for the show. The 69th Regiment donated the building for us to do that. Now, this is the same building that Marc Jacobs, literally, hold on a second, I'll show you. Oh, damn it, I lost my Marc. It's just here. Here we go. Fall 2012. Marc Jacobs does his fashion shows there, like Spider-Man, the movie. That's where they did the big CGI scenes. They built the sets in that place. It is absolutely cavernous. And so we have this astounding, impossible feat that I created this entire thing in 1 month. We drove it down to city in 2 box trucks, set it up, had the show, broke it down, came back. And when we came back, my dad, who was astoundingly, he was integral in the creation of this. And also, again, Tamara Gabbard, she, bankrolled half the canvas, or most of the canvas. And this woman's like my sister. I love her more than anything. And I looked at him and I told him, I was like, as amazing and incredible as that was, I was like, no one's ever going to know it happened until 10 years from now. I was like, no, it's not going to exist. No, no one will even know it existed. And, it's one of those things where it's kind of, in order to make it I'm at a loss for words right now. to make it count, to make it like have counted, to make it important to have it, for it to have been created, I have to still create everything else here. I have to still create all these other things for that thing to still exist. Otherwise, things just disappear and go into the ether. It was a big lesson, and it was a lot of work, and I nearly died 3 times. But that's a reoccurring theme in my life too. But that's a whole other story.
There is very much like this renegade spirit and like DIY. Like, here's an exhibition of something, I'm gonna create it myself. For those of you on the call who are familiar with Fountain Art Fair, like that was very much in that same vein as well, and that's where I originally met Samson, which was pretty cool. Yeah. I'd love to open this up a little bit because actually we're at an hour, which is like wild. But I see there's Michelle. If you're still, I don't know if she's still with us, but you have a very interesting question in the chat. So would you like to ask it yourself?
Oh,
she may have. I might be mispronouncing her name. Oh, I'll ask. But given the connection you have with live performance and movement, do you see yourself further collaborating with formal dancers and or dance companies?
Absolutely, yes, without a doubt. You know, one of the things about dance and about like physical movement work is that it exists in the moment, and it again, like when I work with dancers and I work with people that are more physical about it, I like to capture what they create. You know, so again, it comes back to like creating the relics. But I absolutely, without a doubt, I love collaborating with people, but I'm very selective about who I collaborate with. You know, but yeah, dancers, like every dancer is their own brush, and that's what I love about that. And but yeah, collaboration is a huge part of you know, of finding new ways to create things. And you know, as you said, like I have the warrior, that, you know, strength of what I do. So, you know, getting over the I can do everything and I can be everything, like it helps to have sometimes someone to A, reflect with, and B, be able to, like, you know, not have the responsibility of creating everything.
Yeah, that's very exciting. I can't wait to see what you do with that.
Oh yeah, and again, like I've had to put a lot of things on the back burner for a number of years, you know, just to be able to make sure I brought this massive, you know, project at the plaza, the Empire State Plaza, to fruition. And but yeah, it is. So now I'm in the phase of getting back into like getting loose again. You know, like not being nervous about the repercussions of what I do and what I create. You know, and also, you know, like, you know, but like, I'm not sure if everyone else does, like, I also do bodyguard work. You know, I'm a professional bodyguard to the lead singer of a band. And, you know, I've been doing security for Black Lives Matters protests that have been going on for like the past like week and a half at this point. And so, you know, going back to the warrior thing, like sometimes you do have to like delineate where you have to put your power, where you have to put your strength, where you have to put your focus. And but I'm hungry to create again, is what it is. I feel like I'm more driven than I've been in as far as I can possibly remember at this point, honestly.
That is very cool, and it's so wonderful what you're doing to help the Black Lives Matter movement. So just like, thank you so much for that. It was really powerful yesterday. We did a tech test, and he was like, I can be here for a minute, but these are all Black Lives Matter leaders, and I'm protecting them, making sure they're all protected right now. And that's just so incredibly beautiful for that. So thank you, and I want to make sure everybody on this call knows that you're doing that. too.
No, it's necessary. It's what it is. It's like it's that time, it's that place in our history that you have to stand. You have to stand up. There's there are sides, and it's not a matter of, it's not even a matter of right and wrong. It's just like you have to be, and you have to know in your heart that if you put your all into anything, that it's gonna be good. And I'm making sure that these revolutionaries and these kids are come home safe, like, is really important to me. Their voices are the most, it's one voice that can change absolutely everything. And if I can help that voice get home that day, that will make me, that means everything to me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Does anyone, would anyone like to unmute themselves and ask your own question? Question, comments?
That's it. And if not, that's fine. I feel like I can talk for 10 more hours, believe me.
What are the ones we showed at Rush years ago in 2012? The beauty.
Oh, okay. So that
a little bit.
What's that? Oh yeah, absolutely. So that was actually part of the creating the icon project. And give me 1 second. I just gotta move a few boxes. But that project I started. Oh God, that had to be in 2010, 2009, and just like most of my other projects, I like doing them in volume. I feel like expanse is a huge part of what I do. So I was creating 500 portraits of women and femmes that I know, in iconic fashion. And in iconic fashion, what I mean is, we are all familiar with the images of Audrey Hepburn, of Bob Marley, of Che Guevara, where they take that high graphic, black and white, and it's just a single image. You see them on T-shirts, you see it on things like that. What that has done, and what that does, it takes any image. Oh, hold on, I really have to get to this.
And when you do things on such big scale and massive and expanse, and then have to put them all in your storage, I'm sure that's a tough one. Oh yeah, look at that. There it is.
There we go. It's one of the things that actually happens to be at like the front. But yeah, this is one of the 4x4 paintings that I did of the 500 paintings of the series of the Creating the Icon series. And this is my dear friend Glenn, a fantastic, amazing human being and dog mom. And every one of these is meant so where when you see it, it's heavy.
And those are heavy. Those are like solid plywood. I've hung those on the wall.
These ones are no joke. And most of them, but most of the other ones that I created, they were on canvases and fabrics and materials. And so what I would do is I would find a bed sheet at a garage sale, and I'd be like, oh, that'd be perfect for Melissa Pinto's project or face. And like, I would try to take, I don't know if I have it right here. I don't think I have any right here. Wait, hold on. Let me double check. And so I would take these different fabrics and these different canvases. A lot of the drop cloths that I used for the Art of Violence ended up as paintings for this project, because I obviously can't stand to throw shit away. Excuse me. especially when I've created it though. That's like the big thing. And so, awesome. Hold on just a second. This is a good one. Hold on, we'll be right back. And so normally, like these are like 7, 8, 10 feet tall. And all are very representative of the people's personalities that I create these of. And this is my friend Shandale Tamala. She is she helps kids in juvenile halls get out of juvenile halls and get back on track. Astounding human being. And so yeah, not everything is heavy, but everything is usually very big when I create it.
Beautiful. Oh, I'm so glad you had some of those.
Oh my God.
Around. We're about 10 minutes over, so I'm gonna kind of do a last call for comments. Okay, quiet group today, quiet group. Oh, Michelle, yes.
Well, I don't really have a question. I just wanted to say, you know, that this was really inspiring. I don't really have a question that comes to mind, but I feel like everybody's wheels are just turning right now, so maybe that's why we're quiet today. But I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's
thank you everyone.
A lot to take in. Do you have any closing comment statement you'd like to?
Oh, geez. I feel like I should have sussed this out way before, but no, just like, you know, believe in your heart, like do what feels good. You know, you're always going to find your way if you do. And whether it's you know, whether it's a hard fight or it's an easy walk, like do what's in your heart.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Samson. This was really a treat, a true honor. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We do have a few more of these coming up. Tomorrow, we're going to be visiting an artist named Charles Clary. He's actually based in South Carolina, and he does all these crazy paper cuts. And he's also auctioning off work on his Instagram and his Facebook page every night, right, this week, to support Black Lives Matter. So, and the bidding starts like $65, so like check it out. And all the proceeds are going to that cause, which is really cool. And then next week we're going to be visiting Gabriel Schuldener in his Chelsea studio, which is also his studio apartment, and the whole thing is like crazy with all this black gelatinous.
I'm familiar with Gabriel. That's gonna be awesome.
Have you ever seen his kitchen, man?
I've never seen his kitchen.
It's a real treat. It's a serious treat. So anyway, thank you so much for joining us, everybody, and I hope to see you again. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye, Samson. Thank you.
Bye.